The Hidden Door. In a small village by the sea, there was an old lighthouse. Everyone knew about it, but no one went near. It had been abandoned for years, and people said it was haunted. Yet deep down, everyone was curious about what was inside. One day, a boy named Oliver moved to the village with his parents. His new house was close to the lighthouse, and every morning he could see its tall, shadowy figure from his window. It looked lonely, almost as if it was waiting for something. Oliver was different from the other kids. While they warned him about the lighthouse telling stories of ghosts and strange noises, Oliver wasn't scared. He felt drawn to it. Maybe there's a reason people say it's haunted, he thought. Maybe there's a secret inside that no one has found yet. One sunny afternoon, when the waves were calm, Oliver decided to explore the lighthouse. The door was rusty and creaked loudly as he pushed it open. Inside, dust filled the air, and the light from the windows barely reached the ground. It felt like the place hadn't been touched in years. As Oliver walked deeper inside, he saw old furniture, broken lamps, and a spiral staircase leading up to the top. He started climbing. Each step echoed in the empty space. His heart raced, but not from fear. He felt something exciting, like he was about to discover something no one else had. At the top of the stairs, he found a small room. It was just as old and dusty as the rest of the lighthouse, but there was something odd about it. On one wall, there was a large painting of a ship. But this wasn't just any ship. It looked real, almost as if it was moving on the canvas. He reached out to touch it, and just as his fingers brushed the surface, he heard a faint whisper. "Help me." Oliver jumped back, heart pounding. He looked around, but there was no one else there. He felt a cold breeze, even though all the windows were closed. The whisper came again, this time clearer. "Help me, please." His hands trembled. "Who are you?" Oliver asked, his voice barely a whisper. He wasn't sure if he wanted an answer. Suddenly the room felt heavier, like a thick fog had settled over it. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw it. A door. It hadn't been there before, or maybe he just hadn't noticed it. It was small, almost hidden behind the large painting. Without thinking, Oliver walked toward it. He reached for the handle, but the whisper stopped him. "Don't." The voice sounded sad, almost pleading. But Oliver, with his curiosity now overpowering his fear, turned the handle and pulled the door open. What he saw wasn't another dusty room. It was a bright green garden, filled with flowers that sparkled under a warm golden light. In the middle of the garden stood a tall, elegant woman. Her face was kind, but her eyes looked tired, as if she had been waiting a long time. Oliver knew right away that this was where the voice had come from. "Who are you?" Oliver asked again, this time louder. The woman smiled softly. "I am Eleanor. I've been trapped here, waiting for someone brave enough to find me." Oliver was confused. "Trapped in the lighthouse?" She nodded. "Yes. Long ago this lighthouse was full of life, and I was its keeper. But one stormy night I was lost at sea. My spirit has been here ever since, waiting for someone to help me return." Oliver felt a mix of fear and sympathy. "How can I help you?" "You've already found the door," Eleanor said. "Now you must help me open the gate to the sea. It's the only way I can go back home." Together, they walked through the garden, which seemed to stretch far beyond the size of the lighthouse. In the distance, Oliver could see the ocean, its waves crashing gently against the shore. At the edge of the garden, there was a stone archway, covered in vines. It looked old and mysterious, like it had been there for centuries. "This is the gate," Eleanor said, "but I cannot open it alone. You must help me." Oliver reached for the gate, but it wouldn't budge. "It's locked," he said. "Look closely," Eleanor whispered. "The key is hidden in the light." Oliver was confused at first, but then he remembered something. The painting of the ship in the room. The light from the windows had hit the ship in a strange way, making it almost glow. "The painting!" he exclaimed. "That's where the key is." He ran back to the room, his footsteps echoing once again in the lighthouse. When he reached the painting, he looked closely at the ship. It wasn't just glowing, it was hiding something. In the waves painted below the ship, there was a small silver key tucked into the folds of the water. Carefully, Oliver took it out. When he returned to the garden, Eleanor was waiting by the gate. "You found it," she said, her voice filled with hope. Oliver placed the key into the lock, and with a soft click, the gate swung open. A soft breeze from the sea swept through the garden, and the sunlight seemed to grow even brighter. Eleanor smiled, her tired eyes now filled with peace. "Thank you, Oliver. You've set me free." As she stepped through the gate, her form began to fade, becoming one with the light and the wind. Before she disappeared completely, she turned to Oliver and said, "The lighthouse is yours now. Take care of it as I once did." And with that, she was gone. For a moment, Oliver stood there, staring out at the open sea. The garden was quiet now, but it felt alive, like a new chapter had begun. He walked back through the lighthouse, down the spiral staircase, and out into the fresh air. The village was quiet, the waves still calm. But Oliver knew something had changed. He had uncovered a secret that no one else had known. From that day on, Oliver visited the lighthouse every day. He took care of it, just as Eleanor had asked. And whenever the light from the tower shone out over the sea, he thought of her, the woman who had been trapped, waiting for someone to listen. The lighthouse was no longer a place of fear or mystery. It had become a beacon of hope, a place where stories were told and secrets were uncovered. And in the village, people no longer whispered about ghosts or strange voices. Instead, they talked about the boy who had brought light back to the old lighthouse. Years later, Oliver became the keeper of the lighthouse, just like Eleanor. And every time he lit the lamp, he remembered the hidden door, the garden, and the woman who had once whispered for help. Oliver continued his daily routine at the lighthouse. At first it was a simple task, cleaning the dust, keeping the windows clear, and making sure the light worked every night. But as the weeks passed, Oliver began to feel a deeper connection to the place. The lighthouse was no longer just an old building. It was alive with memories, whispers, and a sense of magic that had opened up the moment he met Eleanor. One afternoon, while sweeping the spiral staircase, he heard footsteps behind him. Startled, he turned around but saw no one. The soft echo of footsteps lingered for a moment, then faded into the silence. He shrugged it off, thinking it was just his imagination. But deep down, he knew something was still there. As the days grew colder, Oliver noticed small changes around the lighthouse. The garden inside the hidden door began to flourish more than ever, despite the chill in the air. Flowers bloomed in vibrant colors, and the once bare branches of the trees were covered in bright golden leaves. It was as though the garden lived in its own world, unaffected by the outside seasons. One day, as he watered the flowers, Oliver noticed something new. An unfamiliar plant had appeared at the center of the garden. It was small, with delicate purple petals and a soft glow, almost as if it were enchanted. He knelt down to examine it, feeling a strange energy radiating from the plant. Suddenly, a voice spoke behind him. "You found it." Oliver jumped, turning to see a figure standing by the garden's entrance. It was Jack, his best friend from the village, who had come to check on him. Jack looked at the glowing plant with wide eyes. "I didn't think I'd ever see that," Jack said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's the Moonflower. My grandmother used to tell me stories about it. She said it only appears when something extraordinary is about to happen. Oliver frowned. What do you mean? Jack crouched beside him, still staring at the plant. She said it's a sign of change, a big change. Something important is coming, Oliver. Oliver felt a sudden unease, like the air had grown heavier around them. He remembered the whispers, the hidden door, and Eleanor's spirit. Had they really set her free? Or was there something more that still needed to be done? Later that night, Oliver couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the Moonflower and what Jack had said. The lighthouse, once a place of mystery and peace, now felt like it was hiding something again. He had freed Eleanor, but what if there was more to the story? As he lay in bed, a soft knock came at his window. It was Jack, holding a lantern and looking nervous. Oliver, we need to talk. Oliver let Jack inside, and they sat by the small fire in the kitchen. Jack pulled out an old leather-bound book from his bag. I found this in my grandmother's attic. It's a journal, hers from when she was young. She worked at the lighthouse with Eleanor. Oliver's heart raced. What does it say? Jack opened the journal and began to read aloud. The lighthouse has always been more than a beacon for ships. It guards something, a power greater than anyone knows. Eleanor and I discovered it years ago, hidden beneath the garden. It's protected by the light of the tower, but if the light ever goes out, the power will be unleashed. We swore to keep it a secret to make sure the light never fails. Jack looked up from the journal, his face pale. Oliver, the light went out the night Eleanor died. Whatever they were protecting, it's still here. Oliver felt a chill run down his spine. The peaceful, glowing garden suddenly seemed like a place hiding something darker. What do we do? He asked. Jack closed the journal and took a deep breath. We need to find out what's under the garden. The next day, Oliver and Jack returned to the lighthouse. The air was thick with tension as they entered the hidden garden. The flowers were still blooming, but now the Moonflower seemed to pulse with light, as if it were alive. They began to dig near the base of the Moonflower, the soil soft and easy to move. After hours of work, they uncovered a small stone slab. It was covered in ancient symbols neither of them recognized. But there was something else, a small round indentation in the center of the slab, as if it were waiting for something to be placed there. Jack pulled the locket Eleanor had given him from his pocket. Do you think this is the key? Oliver nodded. It has to be. Jack placed the locket into the indentation, and immediately the ground trembled. The slab shifted, sliding open to reveal a staircase leading deep into the earth. A cold, damp air rose from the darkness below. Oliver and Jack exchanged nervous glances, then descended into the unknown. The secret below. The staircase spiraled down for what felt like hours. The deeper they went, the colder it became, and the walls were damp with moisture. Finally, they reached the bottom where a large, iron door stood before them. It was covered in the same ancient symbols as the slab, but this time, they glowed faintly in the darkness. Jack reached for the door, but Oliver stopped him. Wait, we don't know what's on the other side. Jack hesitated, then nodded. You're right. But we've come this far. We have to see it through. Together they pushed the door open. Inside was a vast chamber, illuminated by a strange, glowing light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it rested a crystal, pulsing with a soft blue light. As they approached the pedestal, a voice echoed through the chamber. You should not have come here. The voice was deep, ancient, and filled with warning. Oliver and Jack froze, their hearts pounding. Who's there? Oliver called out, his voice trembling. From the shadows, a figure emerged, a tall, cloaked man with piercing eyes. His presence filled the room with a sense of dread. "I am the guardian of the light," the man said. "For centuries I have protected this place, keeping its power from falling into the wrong hands, and now you have disturbed the balance." Oliver stepped forward, trying to steady his voice. "We didn't mean to disturb anything, Matt. We just wanted to help Eleanor." The guardian's eyes narrowed. Eleanor was a fool. She thought she could control the power of the crystal, but she was wrong. And now you have awakened it. Jack glanced at the crystal, which was glowing brighter by the second. "What does it do?" "It holds the power of the sea, the storm, and the light. If it is unleashed, it will bring chaos to the world." The guardian stepped closer, his voice growing more urgent. "You must leave this place before it's too late." But it was already too late. The crystal's light intensified, filling the chamber with a blinding brightness. The ground shook, and the walls began to crack. Oliver and Jack backed away, panic rising in their chests. "What do we do?" Jack shouted. The guardian raised his hands, chanting in a language they didn't understand. The light from the crystal flickered, but it didn't stop. The power was too strong. In a desperate move, Oliver ran toward the pedestal. "I have to stop it," he yelled. Before the guardian could stop him, Oliver grabbed the crystal. A surge of energy shot through his body, knocking him to the ground, but the light dimmed and the shaking stopped. The guardian approached Oliver, who lay on the ground, gasping for breath. "You have done something no one else has dared to do. You have taken the power of the light into yourself." Oliver struggled to his feet, the crystal still clutched in his hand. "What does that mean?" "It means you are now the keeper of the light," the guardian said. "The lighthouse, the power, the responsibility, it all belongs to you now." Oliver looked at the crystal, its light now soft and steady. He felt its energy coursing through him, but it was no longer overwhelming. It felt right. The guardian nodded. "You have proven yourself worthy. The lighthouse is yours to protect, just as Eleanor once did." And with that, the guardian disappeared, leaving Oliver and Jack alone in the chamber. A new beginning. Oliver and Jack returned to the lighthouse, the crystal now safely stored in the hidden chamber below. The garden, once filled with mystery, was now a place of peace. The moonflower continued to bloom, a reminder of the power they had uncovered. As the years passed, Oliver remained the keeper of the lighthouse, just as the guardian had said. He tended to the light, keeping it burning bright every night, protecting the village from the dangers of the sea. And though the secrets of the lighthouse remained hidden from the rest of the world, Oliver knew that he had found something far more important than just an old building. He had found his purpose. And every time the light shone out over the ocean, he remembered Eleanor, the whispers, and the hidden door that had led him on this incredible journey. The end.